everyone, welcome back. Tonight we're diving into something that most people outside of Asia have never heard of. Something that exists in the shadows of Chinese spiritual practice. Something that can turn your life into a living nightmare with just a few pieces of information. It's called replacement ghost. And it's not just folklore. It's a practice that people still fear today. Before we begin, I need you to understand something. What you're about to hear isn't entertainment. This is a warning, a documented case from Hong Kong that shows what happens when you trust the wrong person with something as simple as your birth date and time. After this story, I'll explain the cultural beliefs behind this practice, how it works, why people do it, and most importantly, how to protect yourself if you ever find yourself in a situation like this. But first, let me tell you about Jen. Jen was in her early 20s, successful, driven. She had just become a licensed ophthalmologist, one of the youngest in Hong Kong. She'd fought for everything she had: scholarships, late-night study sessions, years of sacrifice, and it paid off. She bought her own apartment, a rare achievement for someone her age in one of the world's most expensive cities. But success has a price, and sometimes that price is paid in ways you never expect. One evening after work, Jen went to visit her childhood friend, Linda. They'd known each other since primary school, grew up in the same neighborhood, shared the same dreams as kids, but somewhere along the way, their paths diverged. Jen excelled. Linda struggled. Jen went to university. Linda dropped out. Jen became a doctor. Linda worked part-time at a bubble tea shop downstairs from her parents' apartment. Still, they stayed close. That's what old friends do. You hold on to the history, even when the present doesn't match. Linda lived with her parents in a public housing estate. You know the type if you've been to Hong Kong. Towering concrete blocks, narrow corridors, flickering fluorescent lights that hum all night, metal security gates in front of every door, the smell of cooking oil and mothballs in the air. They were on the 9th floor. The apartment was small, a cramped living room with a sagging floral sofa, a dining table pushed against the wall, 2 tiny bedrooms in the back. The walls were yellowed from years of cooking. The tiles were that beige, speckled pattern you see in every old Hong Kong flat. A ceiling fan spun lazily overhead. Linda's mother was there, a sharp-tongued woman who smiled often, but never with her eyes. She had a habit of bragging about small things: a new rice cooker, a discount at the wet market. But underneath, Jen always sensed something else: resentment, envy. Whenever Jen mentioned something good in her life, Linda's mother would find a way to diminish it. When Jen bought her apartment, Linda's mother said, "Oh, that area, not the best location." When Jen got promoted, "Doctors work too hard. You'll burn out young." Little comments, always wrapped in concern, but the message was clear: you don't belong above us. Eventually, Jen stopped sharing. She kept her achievements to herself. It was easier that way. On this particular evening, Jen arrived a little early. Linda's father sat at the dining table, reading the Chinese newspaper with his glasses low on his nose. Linda's mother was in the kitchen, finishing dinner. The smell of stir-fried vegetables and salted fish filled the apartment. Jen and Linda sat on the old sofa, catching up. Work, life, the usual small talk. After dinner, they chatted a bit longer. By 9 o'clock, Jen started gathering her things to leave. She stood, said thank you to Linda's mother, turned toward the door. And that's when it happened. Something made her glance at the window. The large window behind the sofa that faced out into the open air between buildings, and she saw it, a figure, floating past the glass, moving from left to right, slowly, deliberately. It was a woman, pale, expressionless, and the face was hers. Jen's own face stared back at her from outside the 9th floor window. Her breath stopped. Her body froze. For a moment, her mind tried to rationalize it. A reflection, a trick of the light, something from the television, but she knew better. They were 9 floors up. There was no balcony, no ledge, no place for anyone to stand. The figure drifted past and disappeared. Everyone in the room noticed Jen freeze. Linda stopped mid-sentence. Her father looked up. They all turned to the window, but by then, there was nothing. Just the glow of the neighboring housing blocks in the distance. Jen stood there, pale and trembling. Then she told them what she saw. The room fell silent. Linda looked confused. Her father scoffed. He didn't believe in ghosts, but Linda's mother didn't laugh. She believed. She looked at Jen with an expression that was hard to read. Fear, or something else. "Come with me tomorrow," she said quietly. "I'll take you to see someone." The next day, Jen met Linda's mother outside Saikung MTR station. Together, they walked to a nearby housing block. Not a temple, not a shop, just another old apartment building in a quiet estate. This was where a Taoist priest lived, someone Linda's mother had been to before. They took the elevator to the 7th floor. Linda's mother rang the bell. A moment later, the door opened. The apartment was dim and cluttered. Right by the entrance was a wooden altar with a Guanyin statue surrounded by flickering red candles. The living room was packed with strange objects, old bells, carved wooden figures, dusty scrolls, stacks of ritual items piled on every surface. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like a storage room for the supernatural. Jen was led to a chair in front of a heavy wooden desk. The priest sat across from her. He looked ordinary, middle-aged, plain white polo shirt, black slacks. Nothing about him screamed spiritual master. He could have been anyone. Linda's mother explained what happened. The priest listened, nodding slowly. Then he asked Jen for her birth information. Date, time, year. In Chinese culture, this information is sacred. It's called your 8 characters, your entire destiny blueprint. In the wrong hands, it's more dangerous than your bank account number. But Jen didn't know that. She gave it willingly. The priest scribbled notes on a yellow piece of paper. He lit a stick of incense, began chanting in a low, rhythmic voice. He moved through a series of small rituals, burned a talisman, waved his hands over the smoke. After about 20 minutes, he stopped. "All is fine now," he said simply. He didn't name a price. Instead, he slid an empty red envelope across the table. "A donation. Whatever you feel is fair." Jen put some cash inside, bowed slightly, and left. She thought that was the end of it. A few days passed. Nothing happened. Jen started to relax. Maybe it was just a strange coincidence. Maybe the priest actually helped. Then one night, she met up with Linda again for a late dinner. By the time they finished, it was past 10 o'clock. Since Jen's new apartment was far, she decided to just stay over at Linda's place. She had plans the next morning anyway. It made sense. The walk back to Linda's building was quiet. Just the two of them under the streetlights, talking casually. About halfway there, Jen felt something strange. Her shirt was being pulled downward, like someone had grabbed the fabric from behind and was tugging gently but persistently. At first, she thought it was her bag strap or the wind, but it wasn't. It was a distinct physical pull. She could feel the pressure on both shoulders, the fabric stretching. She reached back. Nothing. The pulling continued, all the way to Linda's apartment. The moment she stepped inside, it stopped. Jen put her bag down and headed to the bathroom for a quick shower. Linda's parents were already asleep. The apartment was quiet, except for the hum of the ceiling fan. She locked the bathroom door, turned on the water, stepped into the shower, and that's when everything changed. As the water ran down her face, a weight settled on her chest. Heavy, suffocating. Thoughts began to form in her mind. Dark thoughts, thoughts that weren't hers. What's the point of all this? Why keep going? It would be easier to just stop. Jen's eyes drifted. On the soap rack was a pair of scissors, the kind used for trimming hair. She didn't think. Her hand reached out, grabbed them, opened the blades. She gripped the scissors tightly in her right hand. The sharp edge cut into her palm. Blood welled up instantly, mixing with the running water. But it didn't hurt, not at all. It felt like she was watching herself from a distance, like her body was being controlled by something else. This made no sense. Jen loved her life. She loved her job. Her parents were healthy. She just bought her own place. She had everything she'd worked for. So why did she want to die? Something inside her snapped awake, a surge of panic. She fought back against the fog in her mind, forced her fingers to open. The scissors clattered to the shower floor with a metallic ring. Her hands were shaking. Blood spiraled down the drain. She shut off the water, got dressed, stumbled out of the bathroom. Linda saw her immediately. Her eyes went wide. What happened? Did you cut yourself? Jen could barely speak. Her voice trembled as she told Linda everything. The thoughts, the scissors, the feeling of being controlled. Linda looked terrified. She grabbed the first aid kit, wrapped Jen's hand in gauze, cleaned the cut in silence. Neither of them slept well that night. Jen lay on a thin mattress on the floor beside Linda's bed. The air felt heavy, wrong. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt like something was watching her. Eventually, exhaustion pulled her under. And then came the dream. In the dream, Jen was at work, standing in her exam room. A female patient sat in the chair across from her. Middle-aged, neatly dressed, but there was something off about her face, the way she smiled without blinking. Stiff, unnatural. Jen asked her to read the letters on the vision chart. The woman didn't respond. She just sat there, staring, smiling. Then she started to laugh, low at first, then louder and louder, until the sound wasn't just coming from her mouth. It was coming from everywhere, from inside Jen's head. And as the woman laughed, her face began to change, feature by feature. Her chin, her mouth, her eyes, until Jen was no longer looking at a stranger. She was staring at herself, her own face, sitting across from her, laughing. Jen woke up gasping, drenched in cold sweat. Her heart pounded in her chest. The dream felt too real, too vivid. She lay there in the dark, listening to the hum of the ceiling fan, trying to calm her breathing. The next morning, the heaviness was gone. Her thoughts were clear again, but her hand throbbed. The cut stung. She said goodbye to Linda and left. She had plans to meet another friend for dim sum, They sat in a crowded restaurant, sipping tea and picking at steamed dumplings. Jen finally told her friend everything. The floating face at Linda's apartment, the Taoist priest, the scissors, the nightmare. Her friend put down her chopsticks, looked at Jen with serious eyes. Jen, that's not normal. I think you bumped into something unclean. I know someone you should see. Jen agreed immediately. By now, she knew something was wrong. After dim sum, they headed to Kowloon Tong. Again, not a temple or a shop, just another ordinary apartment in a quiet, aging tower. The woman they were going to see wasn't a priest or a medium, just an older Chinese lady, but locals swore by her. They said she could see things others couldn't. The moment Jen stepped inside the apartment, a wave of dizziness hit her. The lights seemed dimmer, the air thicker, like walking into water. Everything became hazy, muffled. She felt herself drifting further from her own body. The old woman looked straight at her. "You're being followed," she said. "By a woman? She didn't find you on her own. Someone helped her, gave her a way to cling to you. This wasn't random. Someone guided her, placed her in your path." Jen's vision blurred. Her legs moved without thinking. Something in her mind told her to leave. Her body turned toward the door. Her friend grabbed her arm. The old woman stood, stepped forward, and gave Jen a sharp slap across the face. It wasn't hard, but it was enough. Jen snapped back. The fog cleared. "Sit down," the old woman said calmly. "Close your eyes." Jen sat. She felt the woman's warm hand rest on her shoulder. "Think back. Where have you been these past few days? Anywhere unfamiliar? Strange?" Jen combed through her memories. The nightmare, Linda's apartment, the walk. Then it hit her. The Taoist priest, the one Linda's mother took her to. The old woman didn't say anything for a moment. Then she spoke. "Is this the building? 2 elevators, trash room on the right." Jen's heart stopped. She hadn't said anything out loud. She nodded slowly. "Keep going," the woman said. "Step into the elevator. Go up." In her mind, Jen did. The memory became clearer. She watched herself step out of the elevator, walk down the hall. "I can't remember if I turned left or right," Jen whispered, but the old woman already knew. "Is it the unit with the Guan Yin by the door? The one filled with old statues and ritual objects?" Jen nodded. "Did you give anyone your birth information in that apartment?" "Yes." The old woman was silent. Then she spoke again. "I see the paper. Your name, your date, your time of birth. It's under the foot of a statue. But there's something else. Another paper. Someone else's name. Their birth information. Stacked right on top of yours." Jen froze. The old woman explained. "This practice is called spiritual substitution. In traditional Chinese belief, if someone's birth information is placed beneath another person's information, it means the one on top is already dead. A spirit. By placing Jen's information underneath, the priest had bound her to that spirit. The spirit was now using Jen as a vessel, a replacement, trying to drag her toward the same fate. The old woman performed a separation ritual. It took over an hour, chanting, burning paper, burning small paper dolls. At the end, she told Jen, "All will be fine now, but never go back to that apartment, and never give out your birth information again." Jen left in silence. Her mind raced. Why did the priest do this? She'd never met him before. She didn't owe him anything. Was it just random cruelty? Or was it something else? She couldn't stop thinking about Linda's mother. The way she looked at Jen, the subtle comments, the years of quiet resentment. Did she set this up? Did she ask the priest to do this? Was this revenge for Jen's success? Jen had no proof, but she had a feeling. After that day, Jen never went back to Linda's apartment. She still met Linda occasionally, for coffee, for lunch, but always outside, always in public places. She never told Linda what she suspected about her mother. What was the point? It would destroy their friendship, and Jen had no evidence, but she kept her distance just to be safe. So what do you think happened? Was it just bad luck? A twisted priest who saw an opportunity? Or was it deeper than that? A mother who couldn't stand watching someone else's daughter succeed while her own struggled? A woman who lived in poverty her whole life, watching Jen rise higher and higher, buying an apartment, becoming a doctor, everything she and Linda could never have. And what about the spirit Jen saw at Linda's apartment? The one with her face? If the priest acted alone, how did he know Jen would come see him? How did he know Linda's mother would bring her? Did Linda's mother meet with the priest beforehand? Did she give him Jen's information in advance? Did she pay him to do this? We'll never know for sure. But here's what I do know. In Chinese culture, your birth information is not just data. It's your spiritual fingerprint, your soul signature. With that information, someone skilled in the dark arts can bind you, curse you, attach spirits to you, even trade your fate with someone else. That's why older generations never give it out freely. That's why fortune tellers and priests are chosen carefully. That's why trust matters. If you ever find yourself in Asia, in a situation where someone asks for your full birth details, your exact time of birth, be very careful. Ask why. Ask who will see it. Ask what they'll do with it. And if something feels wrong, walk away. Because once that information is in the wrong hands, the damage can already be done. Now let me explain what happened to Jen in more detail. Let's talk about spiritual substitution. In Chinese spiritual belief, this practice literally means substitute body or body double. It's the idea that a person can have a spiritual proxy take their place to divert misfortune, absorb a curse, or be sacrificed in their place. There are different types. Let me break down the main ones. First, protective substitution. This is the benign version. In traditional Taoist practice, people create substitutes using paper effigies, straw dolls, or clothing. The idea is that these objects can trick malevolent spirits. The substitute absorbs the bad luck, illness, or even death meant for the person. After the ritual, the substitute is burned or thrown away. The misfortune goes with it. This practice is still common. You'll see paper dolls burned at funerals, or straw figures thrown into rivers during certain festivals. It's meant to protect the living. But then there's the second type, malicious substitution, spiritual manipulation. This is what happened to Jen. If someone has your birth information and they're skilled or working with a practitioner, they can create a substitute to target you. They can transfer someone else's karmic debt onto you. They can bind a spirit to you. They can set you up as a sacrificial stand-in for dark rituals. In Jen's case, her birth information was placed under another person's information. That other person was dead, a spirit. By stacking them, the priest created a spiritual link. The dead spirit was now attached to Jen, trying to use her as a replacement. Why? Because the spirit couldn't move on. It was trapped, and the only way to escape was to make someone else die in its place. This brings us to the concept of the replacement ghost. In Chinese folklore, certain spirits can't reincarnate. They died unjustly, suicide, accident, murder. Their death was sudden and traumatic, so they're stuck in limbo, wandering, suffering, unable to move forward. The only way out is to find a replacement, someone who will die the same way they did. Once that happens, the original spirit is freed, and the new victim becomes the replacement ghost, trapped in the same loop. It's a cycle, and it's terrifying. People who are targeted by these spirits experience specific signs: sudden dark thoughts with no history of mental illness, recurring dreams of drowning, falling, or dying, seeing their own face in reflections or dreams, strong urges to visit dangerous places, water, rooftops, train tracks. The spirit isn't trying to kill out of hate, it's trying to escape, but escape costs a life. In traditional belief, water is especially dangerous. Rivers, lakes, canals, bridges. Water is yin, spiritually heavy, cold, associated with death. Spirits gather near water, especially at night. That's why elders warn, never walk alone near water after dark. If a spirit needs a replacement, you might be chosen. These spirits are stuck in a loop, reliving their death over and over. If they drowned, they feel the water filling their lungs every moment. If they jumped, they feel the fall endlessly. If they were murdered, they feel the pain again and again. Time doesn't pass for them. They're frozen in that final moment, suffering, confused. Sometimes they don't even remember who they were. To break free, they need to recreate their death, but with someone else in their place. That's what the spirit attached to Jen was trying to do. It wanted her to die, so it could finally move on. So how do these spirits find their replacements? Sometimes they mistake a living person for themselves. If you share similar energy, appearance, or fate, the spirit might latch onto you. Sometimes they're guided by someone, a jealous person, a corrupt priest, someone who uses dark magic to direct the spirit toward a target. And sometimes they actively hunt. They whisper, they manipulate, they create accidents, all to force the living person to die the same way they did. This is what Jen was facing, a spirit trying to trade places with her, guided by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The old woman who helped Jen saw all of this. She traced the spiritual link back to its source: the apartment, the priest, the papers under the statue, and she severed it, burned the connection, freed Jen from the spirit's grip. But the damage was done. Jen will carry that experience forever. The feeling of being controlled, the dark thoughts, the knowledge that someone tried to destroy her, and she'll never know for sure who was behind it. The story is real. It happened in Hong Kong. Jen is alive today. She's careful now. She doesn't give out her birth information. She doesn't visit fortune tellers. She doesn't trust easily. And she never went back to Linda's apartment. If this story made you uncomfortable, good. It should. Because this practice still exists. In Hong Kong, in Taiwan, in mainland China, in Singapore, in Malaysia, people still use spiritual substitution to harm others out of jealousy, greed, revenge, and all they need is your name, your birth date, and your time of birth. So protect that information. Guard it like your life depends on it, because in some cultures, it does. If you want to hear more true stories from the dark corners of Asia, subscribe to this channel. We post new videos daily, real cases, real warnings, real consequences. And let me know in the comments, have you ever given out your birth information to someone you didn't fully trust? Did anything strange happen after? I want to hear your stories. Stay safe out there. Be careful who you trust. And remember, some doors should never be opened, because once they are, closing them isn't easy. Sleep well tonight.